the three Great Pyramids of Giza, with the Great Pyramid, of course, being the last surviving wonder of the ancient world, there's an Egyptological fixation that these monuments are tombs, because other pyramids in Egypt have been demonstrated to be tombs. But in fact, there's not a single shred of evidence which supports the view that the three Great Pyramids at Giza were ever built as tombs. Not one single body of any pharaoh has ever been found inside them. And furthermore, the monuments are completely anonymous and uninscribed, so there's nothing written on them that tells us what they are. It's just the opinions of a group of Egyptologists which have gradually, by some sort of magical alchemical process, transformed themselves into fact, quote unquote. And so anybody who opens an encyclopedia today and looks up the Great Pyramid of Egypt will be told that it's a tomb. But there is no evidence for that whatsoever. Now let's consider this extraordinary monument. It weighs 6 million tons. It stands exactly astride latitude 30, 1/3 of the way between the North Pole and the equator. It's perfectly oriented due north, south, east, and west. You know, a few weeks ago, I was in the Greenwich Observatory in London, which marks the Greenwich Meridian, the main north-south line on our planet. And the Greenwich Observatory is supposed to be the best aligned building in the Western world. It is 9/60ths of a single degree off true north. The architects couldn't get it quite to true north. The Great Pyramid, weighing 6 million tons, is just 3/60ths of a single degree off true north. Now I ask you this. If you're a pharaoh building a tomb, why do you need to align it so perfectly to due north? Most people don't even know where north is. And certainly the monument could be 3 or 6 or even 10 degrees off due north without anybody knowing the difference. And if its function was just to be a tomb, then there's no reason for this alignment. The alignment is astonishingly precise, and the precision begs many questions as to why they should set out to create these precise monuments. So these kind of questions, because Egyptologists don't want to get into engineering and architectural issues, but simply want to concentrate on the dust at their feet, are just never raised. Another thing that's never raised is the astronomical aspect of these monuments. To align a monument so perfectly to north, south, east, and west requires advanced astronomy. It takes astronomical sightings to create those alignments. And if we start looking at the Great Pyramids of Egypt from an astronomical point of view, we immediately start learning things about them that begin to shed doubt on the Egyptological picture. I've been working with astronomers on this subject, and it turns out that the three Great Pyramids of Egypt actually form a star map. They represent the 3 stars of Orion's belt, of the constellation of Orion. The pattern that the stars of the Orion's belt occupy in the sky is the pattern that the pyramids have on the ground. Now here's the interesting thing. The positions of the stars in the skies change down the epochs very, very slowly. This is caused by a wobble on the axis of the Earth, and that wobble is called precession, and it's a very slow cyclical process that takes almost 26,000 years to complete. From the point of view of the viewer on Earth, the result is that the positions of the stars in the skies gradually change. And because this process is regular and predictable, with modern computers, we can reconstruct what the ancient skies looked like over any part of the Earth we care to mention in any epoch. Anybody with a PC can do this today. And when you apply this aspect of study to the Great Pyramids, you discover something quite staggering. It's not just that they're a map of the 3 stars of Orion's belt, but they're a map of the 3 stars of Orion's belt not in 2500 BC, when Egyptologists say that, but in 10,500 BC. So it's as though those ancient pyramid builders were trying to specify a date by using the one true clock of our planet, which is the positions of the stars as viewed in the skies. And just in case anybody thinks that's a strange way to do these things, it's been done in the United States. The Hoover Dam also incorporates a star map. The architect of that dam wanted to find a way to memorialize forever the date on which the dam was completed. Even if our civilization vanished and our calendar system was lost, some future scientific, astronomically minded civilization would be able to work out the date because he incorporated a star map into the architecture, froze the skies, as it were, above the Hoover Dam at the moment of completion. And this is what they seem to have done in Egypt as well. So as soon as you bring in these new sciences like astronomy, you start getting a different picture about the pyramids. And it's the same is true with the Sphinx. There, instead of astronomy, it's geology that sheds light on the mystery of the antiquity of that monument. Egyptologists have done a fantastic job, and they've created a huge database of knowledge about Egypt, which is the result of years of painstaking study and research. And on that database, I myself and others who are working in this field have drawn liberally. But the fact of the matter is that they do have a very narrow and focused approach, and this leads to a shortness of view as to what the overall picture may be. There seems to be fashions operate in Egyptology. For a certain period, they consider that the monuments are such and such an age. Then somebody, a particularly venerable scholar, comes along, put forward a new idea, and they change their minds. And the reason that there's all this changing of mind is because there just isn't enough evidence really to go on. And that's why we need new sciences to understand these things. I mentioned a moment ago, again, the Great Sphinx is supposed to be dated to 2500 BC. In fact, it's recently been studied by geologists from Boston University, Professor Robert Schoch, a leading specialist in the weathering of limestone, and John Anthony West. And their conclusion from the nature of the weathering patterns on the Sphinx is that this monument is 12,500 years old, but it dates back to 10,500 BC. It bears the unmistakable marks of what they call precipitation-induced weathering caused by heavy rainfall. And the last time there were sufficient rains in that area to cause that kind of weathering takes us back again to 12,500 years ago. So this is really why I call the book Fingerprints of the Gods, because all over the world there are fingerprints like these, hints, suggestions of evidence of vast antiquity to human civilization, which we're only just beginning to reconstruct. I think the only way it can be explained, if the Egyptologists are right, then this civilization, in its infancy, before it had had time to accumulate any experience of architecture at all, was building the most incredible monuments that the world has ever seen. And that doesn't make sense. The pyramids incorporate an enormous legacy of scientific and architectural knowledge, which can only have been accumulated over a very long period of time. And I explain in the book that the answer to that mystery is that this legacy comes from a much earlier, lost, advanced scientific civilization. It's even possible that they put inside the pyramid, particularly the Great Pyramid, something very specific which a later advanced civilization would be able to rediscover and recognize, which might give the whole picture of what happened to this great lost civilization. And again, this, I'm afraid, is another example of the narrowness of mind of Egyptologists, because in 1993, a German robotics engineer named Rudolf Ganten decided to explore a previously unexplored shaft in the Great Pyramid. It's just 9 inches wide and 8 inches high, and it penetrates into the body of the Great Pyramid, but it doesn't exit on the outside. And Rudolf wondered, what's at the end of this shaft? He built a little high-tech robot. It's a tiny little thing with a video camera on the front of it, and he sent the robot up the shaft. And at the end of the shaft, after a journey of 200 feet, the robot discovered a door, complete with 2 metal fittings, every indication that a great chamber lies beyond the door. Now, all the traditions of that area speak of the hall of records of the gods as having been concealed somewhere in the vicinity of the Great Pyramid. And by the gods, I take it to mean the survivors of this great lost civilization. The amazing thing is that since that door was discovered, Egyptologists advising the Egyptian government have ensured that no further research has been done. Rudolf Gantenbrink has actually been banned from going back to do further research at the Great Pyramid. He said, okay, if you won't let me do it, then please do it yourself. And he's volunteered to give his robot to them, but they've refused to accept it. And for more than 2 years now, there's been no further investigation into this incredible possibility of a hidden chamber inside the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And I think this is most unfortunate. I don't think it's a scientific approach. I think this information needs to be democratized and brought out public.